Hi Susie.
Hi Sarah.
Thank you for letting me interview you so I could find out more about France and the history.
My pleasure.
Well, what I noticed when I was there in my 5 days was there was a lot of depth to France, and I could really see there was a lot of history behind it.
There was a lot of history over your walk, isn't there?
Yeah.
And especially in Paris. What's interesting about Paris is that if you walk around Paris, which is very easy to do because it's flat, which is probably why it's lasted so long as a centre of the world, you can walk through different areas and recount how old it is. For example,
Like the materials in the building.
that's right, and the style. The
Yeah.
Notre Dame, for example, that was built in the Middle Ages. So was the Sorbonne, which is the university that everyone in the world wants to go to. But right near the Notre Dame, you can't see it except underneath. That's where the 3rd century BC, okay, so a long, long time ago, the Gauls arrived and they were called the Parisi, and that's where Paris got its name. And then over the centuries, all sorts of people had Paris or had France. At one point, the English had France. Have you heard of Joan of Arc?
No, I don't.
Joan of Arc was a young girl and she saved the French, saved France from the English. There's a great big statue. So there's an example. You can walk around and see a statue.
Because I remember when I was walking around with you guys, I remember a lot of old and very delicate architecture with lots of detail in it.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
What about the Louvre?
Oh, yes.
For example, the intricacy. That was a royal palace.
Yeah.
And of course now it holds most of the culture that we think of in France as their visual arts, you know, the Mona Lisa, the Delacroix, the David and all that. But originally that was a palace, a royal palace. So we get a sense of the monarchy as well. And the beauty, like, Louis XIV, he had all the fun and he was known as Sun King and he just wanted everything to be beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
But then there are other parts of Paris where you look at another history, like Montmartre, which used to be the slum up on the hill, and out of that came a new art movement. So from history is the culture.
Yeah.
It's funny because everyone goes to the museums to see the paintings, and then they can actually go to the actual buildings that the painters went to.
Yeah.
Like the Moulin Rouge, everyone knows that from the film, of course. But Toulouse-Lautrec used to paint there. And of course the Impressionists painted outdoors. And if you walk in the Tuileries, which is the gardens.
Yeah, I remember going there with you.
We did, that's right. And that's where you stopped and saw the statues.
Yeah.
They were all there. And Renoir painted some people like you walking through the Tuileries.
Oh, yeah.
So you can
I
walk
remember seeing those in the museums.
That's right. You can walk through the streets and then go and see the art of someone like you walking through those same streets hundreds of years before.
And like you were saying about how you can tell how old that place is, I remembered lots of cobblestone streets,
Yes.
like the materials used to make them.
Well, the cobblestones are, if you're thinking like in the left bank, for example, where the Pont Neuf is and Place Dauphine, Ile de la Cité, where the Notre Dame is,
Yeah.
on that island, and Ile Saint-Louis, that was the central area of Paris.
Oh.
Because it was protected by the river
Yeah.
as well.
So there's like a garden around it.
Yeah, exactly. But, historically and culturally speaking, I think everyone in the world holds France as a beacon or as at the top of aspiration. Whether it's food and wine. People love gourmet.
Or fashion.
Food, wine, fashion, film. The biggest film festival in the world is the Cannes Film Festival. And the biggest theatre festival in the world is in Avignon. The Théâtre d'Avignon.
Avignon! Yeah, I remember reading about that.
And then when you go to Avignon, you'll see the pont, which of course is very famous.
The song.
The song, that's right. So everywhere you go in France, you are living the culture. You are experiencing the culture. And it's true, even through the final century, when the legacy is left today, you know the great big wide boulevards?
Yeah.
There was a guy called Baron Haussmann, and Napoleon, the third emperor, he commissioned him to design to plan the city.
Yeah.
That's why the middle, the left bank is all cobbledy, but the right bank is all beautiful avenue because they planned it that way.
Well, I noticed this difference between Sydney and Paris.
Yes.
When I went there, it was a lot more multicultural
Yeah.
and I noticed a few more people with African ethnicity.
There's a lot of that, of course, because the French colonized Africa.
Yeah.
And there were also the Algerian conflict and the Algerian relationship means that a little bit like in London, where there are a lot of Indians because of the English Raj and all that, in France there's a lot of African culture, which is fantastic. And there's, it's...
That's good that the cultures are like merging together.
That's right. And one of the great French writers, Albert Camus, and all these writers, they were totally influenced by their time in Africa. So it's true. It's got multicultural, and of course, it's very strong.
Well, thank you again for coming for the interview.
You're welcome.
It was great to learn more about French history.
Thank you for sharing that.